It seems Jujutsu Kaisen Shinjuku Showdown arc, or the entire series for that matter, has reached its much-awaited climax with the release of Chapter 249. Jujutsu Kaisen's previous installment teased us with an upcoming showdown between Ryomen Sukuna, the King of Curses, and Yuta Okkotsu and Rika, the Queen of Curses. The question is, will this current chapter in Gege Akutami's magnificent saga finally satiate our desire for a battle larger than Gojo vs Sukuna? And what has been going on elsewhere during this undeniably decisive battle that will determine the fate not just of Jujutsu sorcery, but of Japan in general? Well, stick around until the end of the video as we tell you all about what you can expect in Jujutsu Kaisen 249. Let's get into it. Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 249. Yuta jumped in between Yuji Itadori and Sukuna the last time we saw the samurai-clad genius Jujutsu sorcerer, after which he and the King of Curses rushed at each other for an initial clash. The merciless curse user then threatened Yuta to put up a good fight, or else he'll kill everyone who matters to him. And that's when Rika appeared out of nowhere to respond by smashing Sukuna into the ground. But what had Yuta and Rika been up to before they arrived at Yuji's aid? The last time we saw the special grade Jujutsu sorcerer, he had just separated Kenjaku's head from his body. Well, Chapter 249 answers that question in true Akutami fashion. The latest installment opens with a flashback to a few minutes ago, just right before Yuta and Rika headed for Yuji and Sukuna's location. In the moments right after slicing off Kenjaku's head, Yuta stands vigilantly, cursed katana in hand, as the ancient curse user's disembodied noggin tells him something ominous, that his will shall be passed on. At that moment, Yuta notices Kenjaku's, or shall we say, Geto's, headless body convulsing on the ground. As expected from one of Jujutsu High's elite sorcerers, Yuta immediately realizes that Kenjaku has lost control of Geto's cursed spirit manipulation technique, which will result in all of the stored cursed spirits in his body to come out and wreak havoc. Knowing this, Yuta calls for Rika, his own cursed spirit and former lover, just as an entire army of monsters comes bursting out of Geto's lifeless body. The genius sorcerer fends off the cursed spirits rushing his way, but their sheer number still allows a great number of them to zoom past Yuta. In the meantime, Yuta drags an unconscious, or perhaps dead, Fumiko Takaba to safety, the curse user initially responsible for putting Kenjaku at the brink of death before Yuta finished the job earlier. The special grade Jujutsu sorcerer stops in his tracks when he sees that the cursed spirits from Geto's body are trying to rescue Kenjaku. The disembodied head of the villain then adds one more rule to the culling game using Kogane to have the authority to start the great merger with Tengen transferred to Megumi Fushiguro. As we all know by now, that order basically means that Sukuna will be leading the Great Merger, the ritual that will eradicate all regular humans and virtually turn them into curse users in a hive mind-like state using Tengen as the vessel. Kogane installs the new rule, all the while Yuta finds Kenjaku's head suspended in mid-air as Geto's cursed spirit lifts it. The Jujutsu terrorist reveals to Yuta that he's planned for all of this. In the case of his demise, Sukuna will take over their mission and proceed with the merger. Yuta then sees that aside from Kenjaku's head, the spirits from Geto's body are also holding a cursed womb with a gestating Master Tengen in fetus form right inside it. The grotesque fetus of Tengen writhes before it shoots out of the cursed womb and flies off to escape. Kenjaku's not so lucky on the other hand, as Yuta drives his sword right through Kenjaku's head before he can flee. And as we can expect from Akutami-sensei's portrayal of the near-immortal villain, Kenjaku treats us fans with some delightful parting words. Kenjaku doesn't scream or curse Yuta, nor does he let out one final threat. Instead, he simply says that although he might not exactly have had 1,000 years worth of fun in his life, he's happy that he got to spend his last battle with Fumihiko, who's shown to be still peacefully unconscious at the moment. Before the final embers of light fade out from Kenjaku, he entrusts everything to the remaining Jujutsu sorcerers, noting that it's going to be fun no matter what happens next. Back in the present, Yuta and Rika have Sukuna surrounded as they wait for the other to make a move. The special grade Jujutsu sorcerer spots the King of Curses' previously severed hand now completely regenerated. Witnessing this, Yuta concludes that Sukuna's reversed curse technique output has returned and it won't take long for him to have enough cursed energy to use Malevolent Shrine again, Sukuna's extremely powerful domain expansion. In those few short moments, Yuta analyzes the situation and mulls over the fact that Higuruma, one of their trump cards against Sukuna thanks to his executioner's sword, is dead. He experiences a split second of doubt as Yuta thinks about his decision to initially go after Kenjaku instead of aiding Higuruma and Yuta against Sukuna right from the start. Yuta thinks that perhaps Maki, who's now an absolute beast of a warrior because of her heavenly restriction, should have dealt with Kenjaku. He ultimately dismisses any hesitation afterward, concluding that he and Rika's power set was the most efficient way to deal with Kenjaku and Geto's cursed spirit manipulation technique. Sukuna rushes the special-grade Jujutsu sorcerer just as Yuta gathers his resolve. The King of Curses is forced to stop in front of his opponents though, as Rika blocks him and Yuta counters with his katana. But Sukuna's unfazed. He grabs the edge of Yuta's blade with his bare hand right before it can chop off his right shoulder. As we expect from a special grade like Yuta, he immediately notices that Sukuna used his cleave technique to help him guard against his sword. Yuta and Rika then take Sukuna by surprise as the Queen of Curses rushes him from behind. At the same time, Yuta lets go of his curse tool and counters with a solid punch to Sukuna's gut. The King of Curses manages to block Rika, but Yuta hits him square in the gut. The impact causes Sukuna to let go of Yuta's sword, which he catches in mid-air before going for a horizontal slash aimed directly at his opponent's head. Sukuna barely dodges Yuta's sword, and the King of Curses goes on the defensive as Yuta and Rika put pressure on him. In the midst of battle, Yuta has another realization. He was just making excuses when he said that he and Rika were the best warriors to defeat Kenjaku. In truth, Yuta had a personal grudge against the ancient curse user. He's wearing Geto's face after all, Yuta's first arch-nemesis in Jujutsu Kaisen 0. To add to that, Yuta partly blames himself for everything that's happening right now. Had he made sure Geto was 100% obliterated after their first bout, Kenjaku wouldn't have been able to claim his body. A hero right to his core, Yuta uses his thoughts to further solidify his resolve, and it culminates when, for the first time since we met this genius sorcerer, Yuta activates his domain expansion, all-encompassing unequivocal love. The technique transforms the area into a desolate battlefield where katanas are strewn all over the place and cordoned with omamori knots. Caught in Yuta's fully formed domain, all Sukuna can do right now is activate Hollow Wicker Basket, an energy-efficient rudimentary simple domain technique that counters the sure-hit effect of any given domain expansion. Yuta doesn't waste time on the other hand. He immediately grabs one of the katanas embedded in his domain and strikes the King of Curses. Sukuna blocks it with one of his arms, which Yuta counters by activating a new technique, Thin Icebreaker. This causes an explosion at the point of impact. Yuta stands a short distance away as his sword dissipates into thin air. He's made up his mind at this point. He's going to end Sukuna and the Great Merger right in his domain. The smoke from the explosion clears, and Sukuna remains standing. His Hollow Wicker Basket technique managed to reduce the effect of Thin Icebreaker, but Yuta dealt him enough damage to force him to use his Reverse Curse energy. Sukuna stares at Yuta, all the while analyzing the situation. He has scoured Megumi's memories, which showed him that Yuta's innate technique is Copy, which allows the Jujutsu sorcerer to use any technique his enemy uses. Furthermore, Sukuna determines that Copy is more potent within Yuta's domain, since it removes any restrictions from allowing him to, well, copy his opponent's abilities. The King of Curses also surmises that the Jujutsu sorcerers are trying to wear him down, forcing him to constantly use Hollow Wicker Basket while he fights Yuta inside the domain. Then he realizes that they are planning on sicking Yuji on him so that the boy can use Black Flash to forcibly separate Sukuna from Megumi's body. Sukuna sees Yuji join the fray as he, Yuta, and Rika surround the King of Curses. He isn't worried about it though. Sukuna relishes the opportunity and even teases Yuji about finally having a useful role to his team at the end of the chapter. Our thoughts about Jujutsu Kaisen Chapter 249. With Jujutsu Kaisen's 249th installment now in the history books, all we can say is, whew, that was one hell of a thrill ride from start to finish. In true Akutami fashion, we've gotten answers to some questions about Yuta's powers and potential, but at the same time, leaving us with more things to ponder after its last scene. Most notable about this installment is that we finally see the definitive end of Kenjaku, and, by extension, Suguru Geto, so it's probably highly unlikely that we're going to see another curse user-controlled army of malevolent spirits anytime soon. Not that the rest of Kenjaku's surviving comrades need it, though, because it appears that the Great Merger is well underway now that Tengen has burst out of her cursed womb. And remember, Tengen writhed and changed shape before escaping. In Jujutsu Kaisen lore, that's an indication that the cursed womb will most definitely give birth to a special grade cursed spirit. The more important thing to ask here is whether Tengen is now a full-fledged special grade, or if she's still gestating. If we were to check out JJK's lore, it also states that cursed spirits evolve within cursed wombs when they sense a looming threat around. In this case, that threat is none other than Yuta. With Tengen now free, we can only hope that there's still enough time for our favorite Jujutsu sorcerers to stop the Great Merger before Sukuna takes charge of the plan. Moving from how cursed spirits are born to the topic of Jujutsu sorcerers' deaths, we still have no idea about the ultimate fate of Fumihiko Takaba, the comedian sorcerer who basically single-handedly defeated Kenjaku before Yuta stepped in. As of Chapter 249, we're still seeing Fumihiko the same way that he was after his duel with Kenjaku, wearing rather ominous funeral garb and a calm, sleep-like expression on his face. If you ask us, we'll stick to our theory that the man is still alive. Remember, Akutami-sensei tends to lean toward gruesome deaths whenever he takes characters off the board, such as when Mahito turned Nanami into minced meat and how Sukuna separated Gojo's upper and lower halves. In Fumihiko's case, we're seeing a man who's more likely to have a power nap than one who's actually dead. Plus, there's an argument we can make that the funeral robe he's wearing is a manifestation of his comedian technique, given that it alters reality based on what he finds funny. That said, there might be a chance that Fumihiko is hibernating, with his funeral robes a way to indicate that he's still constantly using his technique to help him recover. But this is Jujutsu Kaisen, and anything can happen in this world. There's an equal chance that Fumihiko might end up like everyone's best girl, Nobara Kugasaki, whose ultimate fate after Mahito blew her face off is still up in the air. All we've gotten about Kugasaki up until now are a couple of mentions in passing, which don't remotely answer if she's still alive or not. Hopefully Fumihiko doesn't suffer the same treatment and we get an answer from Akutami-sensei sooner rather than later. One of the biggest highlights of Chapter 249 is, of course, Yuta's Domain, all-encompassing unequivocal love. This is the first time in both Jujutsu Kaisen and Jujutsu Kaisen 0 that we're seeing the special grade sorcerer use his domain, and it's a doozy. It's without a doubt one of the most visually appealing domain expansions so far, what with its overall war-torn motifs and an overabundance of swords at Yuta's disposal. This fantastic showing admittedly leaves us with more questions about all-encompassing unequivocal love. Sure, the sure hit effect is there as with any other domain expansion, but how exactly does it work? Looking at past sorcerers and curse users, we had the likes of Gojo's Infinity, which bombards anyone within it with so much information that they go insane. Meanwhile, Sukuna's malevolent shrine traps his target within an ominous, demonic-looking temple that allows him to use his cleave technique from a distance. So far, we've only seen Yuta grab one of the many swords within his own domain and use it to perform another new technique, Thin Icebreaker. And by the looks of it, this does not even come close to releasing the domain's true potential. Who knows? Maybe we'll get to see Yuta go so far as to telepathically control the thousands of swords within all-encompassing unequivocal love and release them simultaneously at Sukuna. That would definitely be a sight to see. Finally, Akutami's decision to portray Sukuna more as a cunning warrior than a rabid superpowered villain is just brilliant. Here we have a villain who, in spite of how much of a cold-blooded killer he is aware of the potentials and limitations of his technique. That explains how Sukuna won his duel against Satoru Gojo cleanly. No cheats, no assists, just pure mastery of his own cursed techniques. Whatever the future holds for Jujutsu Kaisen's upcoming chapters, one thing's clear. The war between Sukuna and the Jujutsu sorcerers of Japan has cranked up another notch. We can't wait for the next one. What did you think of Jujutsu Kaisen's 249th installment? Got any theories about the series you want to share? Let's talk about it in the comments section below. And if you want to be the first to see amazing manga and anime videos, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications. We'll see you in the next video, guys.